There's a serious Mark's package joke in there, but I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, no good.
No good. Welcome back to the Toronto Beer Podcast. In this, what I'm calling Season 2. I'm Chris Schreier, and this is my wonderful co-host, Mrs. Mandie Murphy. How you doing, Mandie?
I'm great, Chris. How are you doing?
Well, I mean, for the listeners at home, you will understand if you know that we're recording this Wednesday night at 9:58 p.m. I'm feeling pretty darn good right now. That was a heck of a baseball game.
I don't know if you could hear it in my voice, but I can't stop smiling.
I was so nervous today. I shouldn't have been. I should have had faith, but I was nervous.
Nerves are natural when you're entering this section of the postseason. It's not something we're used to dealing with here in Toronto. There were many tears this evening, happy ones.
I cannot tell you how good I felt when they threw Osuna in the 8th, 2 outs to go still, and he just did exactly what he does. It's like the way you feel when a Porsche rips by you on the highway and you don't even mind because you're just like, that's just what that thing does.
That is not the analogy I would use whatsoever. When a Porsche rips by me on the highway, I usually feel all sorts of angry. And that is not how I felt when I watched Osuna strike out 4 out of 5 batters that he faced this evening.
Well, that's fair. I personally give way to the Porsche. Anybody else? I'm with you. Idiot. Don't overcompensate, but Porsches are special. Anyway, so is Osuna. That was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful baseball. Let's do this. Let's talk a little baseball.
Can this just be a baseball podcast tonight?
No, because there's a really important thing we really need to rip apart.
Okay.
But I want to do the baseball because, we're riding a real high right now. Real high. What about the 7th inning play, the live ball? You are a baseball geek. What was your opinion there?
It's something I'm not familiar with. It's unusual to me because the ump called the... Basically what happened is when Russell Martin tried to throw the ball back to the pitcher, the ball, I guess on his release, hit the batter's bat. He was just standing in like the not out of the box, but he was in the box, but he's not required to step out.
Nope.
And his bat was just in like a neutral position. And the ball hit the bat and was sort of deflected out between the pitcher and third baseman. And it was really unusual because as the runner at third started to run home, the ump started calling it off like, no. And so that is why I think fans are like so up in arms, because that was sort of reversed and the run was allowed, even though it seemed like it should have been a dead ball, which is what the ump was calling for. So I don't know the actual ruling on that. It's not something I'm familiar with, even though I do score the game myself. And I typically score the game not with my own rules, but with my own judgment, because the scorekeeper does have discretion. So I usually score with my own discretion and sort of assign my scored version of the game based on my feelings. And I'm not really sure about that. I've never seen something like that happen before. I think most baseball fans would probably say the same thing. It's a really unusual circumstance. So that the Jays played the rest of the game under protest, and so we'll see what happens.
So it's interesting. I mean, the playing under protest is kind of moot at this point because they won. And, I don't know what comes out of that. It's interesting because the home plate umpire, as you say, waved it off. It was only on conferring with what do they call him? The crew leader or the crew chief or whatever, and the other umpires that they then called it. And then upon Gibbons losing his mind, called up whatever the office is in New York or whatever, and got sort of the equivalent of, going upstairs, as we would say in hockey. And
going to New York in the case of baseball.
Is that what they say? They go, we're going to go to New York.
No, they don't say that, but it's not upstairs. It's in New York.
Yeah, exactly. It's an office in New York. Here, it's an office in Toronto for hockey. But anyway, I digress. because you had to come home from the brewery, because of course, when you work at a brewery called Left Field, you show the game and then you party hard when the good guys win. So I was waiting around a little bit and did a little reading. And it's interesting. So if the catcher had been trying to throw out a runner, like stealing a base, or if he dropped the third strike, whatever, if he was trying to throw out the runner, it would have been immediately a dead ball and the batter would have been out, which is interesting. He obviously wasn't trying to throw out a runner. He was just throwing the ball back to the pitcher, which is a live ball. The other rule is that if the batter from within the box does something that the umpire feels is intentionally obstructing the catcher's throw, then it's also a dead ball and the batter is also out. But what's interesting is, in the context of the game, I don't know if the umpire waved it off just as a reaction, or if he honestly thought, hey, that dude stuck his bat out. If you watch the replay, who is it? Oh, what's his name? What is his last name? Sue or something like that for the Rangers. Anyway,
That's Chu.
Chu. Yeah, it's something Sue, like hyphenated first name and then Chu. He doesn't step out of the batter's box. He doesn't even move. His feet are planted in his batting position, but he stands upright. And I think incidentally stretches his one arm out, holding the bat upright, which I guess, he's stretching or whatever. But that action 100% put the bat into the line of Martin's throw, which he'd already started. Mm-hmm. He'd already cocked his arm to make the throw when the guy's arm popped out. So, I mean, it wasn't malicious, he wasn't trying to create some situation. But I mean, to suggest that he didn't intentionally stick out his arm is insane. Of course he did. It stuck out. Unless it was an involuntary muscle response, that was intentional. He intentionally stuck his bat out, and it did interfere with the ball. So I think it's the stupidest thing in the world. But as I said, it's a moot point because we won. Not only did we win, but we really beat the hell out of them. That was decisive. That bat throw from Jose Bautista is going to be like the stuff of legend in Toronto.
I don't know. Mark and I just had a huge argument about this.
You don't think so?
About this. No, I do. I agree with you, but I'm not sure that I want to get into this on the podcast. I really highly respect Jose Bautista for his leadership and his abilities and his skill and everything he has brought to Toronto. He's amazing. He's awesome. He's just not my favorite player in the Jays. I can't pinpoint why, but it has something to do with his attitude. And I don't know. I love the swagger that the guys on the team have, and I don't love it from Bautista, and I don't know why. I can't pinpoint it. It's a personal thing. I really don't like it. I did not think that bat flip was. I don't know. I didn't think it had a place in today's game. I didn't like it. I thought it was over the top. I just don't.
I liked it because it was such a protest. I would have liked it better if he'd thrown the bat and then he turned and looked at the umpire and been like, "What?" and then started running the bases. That would have made my night.
I don't know. I didn't love it, but I loved the outcome of the game, and I love how he performs. I loved everything else. I think tonight was magical. What
did you think about Encarnacion's immediate home plate before running reaction to his home run?
I don't mind it. See, I can buy it from everybody else, and I just don't love it from Bautista, and I can't pinpoint why. It's a personal thing for me.
I'm gonna have to give that one to you.
I just sort of love when these obscure things happen in baseball because it brings on further analysis, and then it's something you've seen before. So
yeah,
the next time it happens or something similar happens, you'll understand where the call is coming from, and you'll understand the rule. That's the thing about baseball is there are so many obscure or sort of underutilized rules that you would never really know about unless something like that were to happen. So that's one of the things I love about the game.
Yeah, it is a complex, rich game. So it was fantastic, though. I would like to just plug right now Monday, the 19th, is opening game, right? I saw this.
Yes.
It's also election day. I want to recommend to you, if you, unlike me, did not vote in the what do they call it? The advance polls. You go ahead on Monday. This is the listener, Mandie, not you. Mm-hmm. I expect you to be at your brewery no matter what. But dear listener, go on down to the polling station. Cast your ballot, please. Regardless of your political leaning, I want you to show up and vote. We need to get that voter turnout up. And then head on over to a little place called Left Field Brewery and watch that first game. I saw some video of the celebration when the Jays won. That looked like a lot of fun.
We always get such a good crowd for the games. It's a really fun bunch. People are really intensely into the game. Nobody's buying anything from the bar when the game's actually in action. And then there's like lineups for the washrooms and people flood to the bar, just like you're at the stadium when there's a break in the play. It's a crowd that's really, really into the game, and it's so much fun. It's really great to celebrate along with them.
It is fantastic. So that's my plug right there. Vote, then head on over to Left Field and have yourself a good old time.
Thanks for the free plug, Chris. I'm going to recommend on top of that you take advantage of your employer's requirements to allow you to vote during the workday, so that you can get your vote in nice and early, and you can get to the brewery nice and early, as we've been filling up well ahead of game time for the past few games.
I want to just be clear on something here, because I used to work at Starbucks, and every election, provincial or federal, somebody would bring this up, and they would say, "You have to give me paid time off." They would always say, to go vote. This is not true. There is, I can't remember the proportion, but basically you can't be scheduled for a shift so long that you don't have like 2 continuous hours to vote.
Correct.
And unless you work at a sweatshop, you 100% have enough time to vote outside of business hours. Now, there are some pretty cool businesses that say, you know what, kids, we're going to shut it down at noon on voting day. Y'all can grab your lunch, head in and vote, and do whatever you want with the rest of the day. That's pretty cool. That's not required by law. So I'm just putting that out there. This bothers me because literally every single time I would have, they called them partners. My staff would be like, you have to give me paid time off to go vote. I'd be like, dude, you're working a 4-hour shift today. The polls are open for 14 hours or something. You got 10 whole hours to vote in. I am not paying you anything. Get off my lawn.
100%. Get out there and vote. Go to work extra early so you can get out of work early so you can go vote. Then you can get to wherever it is that you're going to watch the game.
Yes.
We have a little saying. We've been working all the sleeping hours so that we can baseball all the sleeping hours, all the working hours. Sorry.
I like that.
Yeah, so we've been working extra late and extra early just so that we can make sure that when it's game time, we are all sitting in front of a TV with a beer in hand.
That's fantastic.
But it means lots of late nights and lots of early mornings, but it's totally worth it.
Okay, some business arising from the last podcast. Dear listener, did you listen to the last podcast? What'd you think? Live on location. I was pretty fond of that. I had a lot of fun.
Chris, I thought it was really loud.
Well, it was, but I think it was audible.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Really loud, though.
Yes, it was very loud.
We were both screaming pretty obnoxiously. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I toasted my voice. It was pretty rough. My business arising, at one point, I obviously misheard you, and I'm also self-righteous, which is a bad combination. But you said something about having something good from the vendors, and I misheard you and thought you said that you'd had multiple things and had one good thing. And I was like, no. And I made this big point. It was very pompous and unnecessary. So this is my public apology to Mandie Murphy. You didn't say what I accused you of saying, and thanks for just rolling with it. It occurs to me that you might not have actually heard what I was saying. So
I didn't even pick up on that, but apology accepted.
It's in there. So very embarrassing, but that's life. We move on. We got some new stuff to talk about. Cranking right along. Let's do, this is going to be called the ABI show, I think. Because we actually have 3 Anheuser-Busch InBev pieces of news that I assume if you listen to this podcast, you probably already know them, but we'll cover them off for you as we introduce them. So first one I'm going to take, it's old news now, especially with the Jays and the other ABI news, but I think it's worth touching on. Mill Street, of course, one of the sort of catalysts, I guess you could say, of the craft brewing renaissance. We had a bunch of craft brewers in Ontario, but Mill Street Steam Whistle really kind of, to me anyway, got that snowball really cranking down the hill in Toronto. And Mill Street's been bought by Anheuser-Busch InBev, specifically Labatt's. But of course, at least until the merger, Labatt's is owned. I think Labatt's is still going to be owned, isn't it, by Anheuser-Busch InBev? Even if they merge, it's Molson that's going to get cut. But anyway, yes. Yeah. I'm getting all my players all confused. This is like a game of Risk where all the men are the same color. But they've been bought, and it was, so my immediate reaction was surprise at how surprised everyone was and how much reaction there was. My immediate reaction when I heard the news, and I heard it in the car, these were my first two thoughts. I was driving. It was on 680. Oh, Mill Street's been bought by Labatt's. And I went, huh. And then I was like, shit, this is really going to suck up a lot of time today. Time that I don't have. And it did. But my immediate reaction was like, okay, whatever. Like, it was such a non-issue. And then immediately what followed was, I mean, kind of the extremes from both sides, which is on the one hand, oh my God, I can't believe Mill Street would ever sell out. They were independent, blah, 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 blah. On the other side of it, Mill Street sucks and the beer is just going to get worse and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, neither of those narratives really, A, are accurate and B, serve any purpose. There's something to be said about Mill Street. But what was your first reaction when you heard the news? What was that? Was that Monday? Honestly, yeah, it was just Monday. Yeah. Honestly, my reaction was finally, because that rumor, quite honestly, has been circulating for so long, but it was more like, holy crap, finally. And everyone at the brewery sort of caught wind of the news at the same time. And it was hilarious because we all jumped up from wherever we were, whatever we were doing, and ran and sort of almost ran into each other in the hallways and blurted it out to each other. Like, holy shit, did you hear Mill Street just got bought by AB InBev? And it was pretty wild because we have a number of people, or a couple of people on the team that were former Mill Street employees. So it's a big deal for them. Like they lived that world. And they have a lot of friends and colleagues that still work at Mill Street. So it's a big deal for them personally. But quite honestly, that rumor had been circulating for such a long time. And the rumor was always, oh, AB InBev is sniffing around at Mill Street and they may get bought or they're in the process of signing a deal. It was like, yeah. It was just like sort of the rumor that would come back around every couple of months. And so when it finally happened, we were all kind of like, oh, yeah, finally. Yeah. We were expecting it to happen someday. We didn't know it would be today, but we were expecting it to happen at some point. Yeah, I wrote a post obviously about it because that's one of the things I do. I mean, my thinking was good for, Steve and Joel and whoever else has shares in that company. They had a pretty happy Thanksgiving, let me tell you. No, it was Friday because it was right before Thanksgiving weekend. It was the Friday before Thanksgiving weekend. Pretty sure. But anyway. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, because I remember thinking, man, going to be a big old turkey at Steve's house. But anyway, Steve, right? Yeah, Steve. Abrams, thank you, exactly. That's right. Yep. So, but in my post, and I'll put it in the show notes. I don't need to fully rehash it here, but certainly one of the things that really struck me was, I mean, it makes a ton of sense for AB InBev. It's the exact same as buying Goose Island. It's the exact same as Molson Coors buying Creemore. You're buying you're buying a successful operation, but most importantly, you're buying a huge chunk of market share. I don't know what Mill Street's market share in Ontario is right now, but I'm willing to bet it's pretty damn big, at least for a craft brewer. And they've just backed up a dump truck of money and bought that market share. And there are going to be some people. In fact, I had a conversation when the news was breaking with a friend who is not a big, like this guy likes beer and he's interested, but he's not a big, geek. And he would still drink like a Mill Street Tank House pretty regularly and really dug the Cobblestone Stout. And he was like, well, that's it. No more Mill Street. Because he doesn't want to support a multinational. He wants to support a local company. And I've completely lost my train of thought because my guitar capo just distracted me. He has stopped drinking Mill Street, but I think you'll find that the vast majority of that huge chunk of market share, they're not going to care. Right. You know, the people drinking, you know, $5 organics at the Noun and the Firkin are probably going to keep drinking because now they're going to be $4 and you might get to win a pair of Leafs tickets for drinking it. So I think that most of the people drinking that beer are going to continue drinking it. And I think that Mill Street's business model was already so closely aligned with the practices of the big breweries that at least in terms of sales, in terms of production, they're an excellent brewery, but their sales were notoriously cutthroat, notoriously I don't want to say mean spirited because that's maybe not quite the right word, but the sales reps would do just about anything to try and knock off another craft brewer's tap and take it over. And there's definitely competitive drive within the industry, and certainly, I mean, you guys have sales rep, couple, one. You'd expect to be picking up lines from time to time. And sometimes that will mean replacing another brewer who maybe you know and respect. I don't think you would mandate that, you know, okay, this week you got to knock off 4 steam whistle lines or something like that, you know? And that's really the spirit of a lot of the reps that I would deal with, at least at Castro's Lounge. And obviously I know a lot of people in the industry, and that's pretty well across the board. So I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't think people are going to notice much of a change. You will notice, you will see it even more places. And actually, I saw something really interesting. Ben Johnson had posted something, and it got this whole comment explosion happening. But Gary McMullen commented that they are now going to have to package in industry standard bottles because AB InBev is like one of the main players in like the agreement about industry standard bottles. And so everything they make has to be sold in industry standard bottles. So like those clear those clear organic bottles and the sort of shapely tank house bottles and that sort of stuff, all with crown caps, are apparently going to have to go, which is interesting.
See. I don't know if that's the case. You don't see Matilda being packaged in those, like.
But Matilda doesn't come in 330 ml bottles.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. They bought Mill Street for the brand, and to a degree, as with like purchases like the Creamore purchase, it seems, at least it seems on the surface, what they're doing is buying a brand to allow it to sort of do its thing with an influx of additional investment, and access to more access to the market if they didn't already have enough access to the market, but more access to the market through their monopolized beer sales channels, especially in Ontario, their most profitable market in the world. But I don't know about the bottle thing. We'll see. I don't know that much about it, but if anything, it would be good for the beer. It's always better for beer to be packaged in brown glass than it is in clear glass, for various reasons.
Although crowns are better than twisties, and so the tank house would be in a slightly worse package. I will just quickly point out, and Gary pointed this out, Creamore used to be available in 500 ml, very nice, sort of almost Chianti-esque bottles. And when they got bought, they had to move, and they are. If you buy a bottle of Creamore, it's in an ISB, twist-off ISB. So there's that. And I will also confess that I hadn't heard of that, hadn't considered it, had no idea until he brought it up. But I thought it was an interesting aside on the Mill Street buyout. I will say this, because I've had some really pleasant conversations with a bunch of the guys up at Mill Street. Notably, I've had drinks and dinner at some events with Joel a couple of times. I wouldn't expect him to remember me, but I certainly remember him. And I've chatted a couple of times with Steve, and you know what, guys, good for you. There comes a time, if you build something, if the timing's right to pull the trigger and make that sale, you earned it. And people can say what they want, including me, about like sales reps practices and stuff like that, and disenchantment there. But in terms of building a very, very, very successful business and reaping the rewards for it, that's exactly what they did. So well done, guys. Take a bow.
I was going to say much earlier in your slight ramble about Mill Street that I would 1000% agree with what you're saying. And then you continued on, and there were certain things that I don't necessarily agree with. I don't necessarily want to get terribly political because I am a stakeholder in a competitive business. But I will say that I will continue as an owner of a craft brewery to work very hard to make sure that the consumer understands the difference between craft beer and non-craft beer, simply because businesses like mine are at a disadvantage versus quote unquote craft breweries owned by AB InBev, which have unfair access to the market that I am not privileged to have.
I completely agree with you there. I think we would still be able to get into a good argument about defining craft beer, but regardless, I think I would never at this point call, say, Creemore or Mill Street something that the government would define as craft beer. So I'm with you 100% of the way. And I also commented, I think it was might have been in a Facebook post or it might have been in my blog post, but that even as I just did, I say, hey, good job, guys. Like, build a solid business, sell it for a boatload of money, and, do whatever you want now. But a lot of people's immediate reaction is like, oh, you would do it too for the money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, actually, you know what? I don't think so. I think I used Reinhard as an example. I said, if in like 10 years, Reinhard was like one of the dominant breweries in Toronto, I don't see Jordan being like, yeah, sure, throw a huge sum of money at me and take my brewery. There are some people who don't do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if you and Mark were in the same boat.
Yeah, I think that there are two ways you can look at it. Look at it, on one sense, business is business. And as Jordan St. John loves to say, beer is business, and you can't pretend that it isn't. And I agree with him 100%. But I think people engage in businesses and start businesses for very different reasons from one another.
Yeah.
And it's very clear if you look at Mill Street from the inside or the outside, that it was run in a very specific way and that they were building it to be the brewery it had become for very specific and deliberate reasons. So that's why this purchase hasn't come as a surprise to anybody. And when you look at breweries like Reinhard or breweries like our own, I would hope that it's fairly evident that we're building it for different reasons and we're doing what we're doing for different reasons.
Yeah.
And we're making choices that are fairly obvious and evident around every little thing that we do for very specific reasons. And it's not necessarily to sell our someday gigantic brand to a big multinational corporation. And I would hope that that's fairly evident.
I would say it is.
At the end of the day, you can't replace... You can't like fake or replace the fact that businesses are locally owned and that profit dollars from those businesses are being funneled back into investment within the province. And that's always going to be the gap when AB InBev buys out a craft brewery, is that those profits, for those who are aware of what's going on in the business of beer, those profits are not being reinvested in your communities.
Yep. That's
Period.
Exactly it.
That's it.
I would go on tears for ages and ages back in the day when the automotive industry hadn't completely tanked in Ontario, because you would go to the GM Center in Oshawa and they'd be serving Anheuser-Busch InBev products. And I'd be like, okay, I mean, I'm assuming probably a unionized shop, but with foreign ownership. The whole point of the GM Center in Oshawa is we make these cars. This is we're doing this all ourselves here. I guess GM is an American company, but my point is that these are people who should be supporting local economy as much as possible. And yet they're swigging these beers that are, the money's going to Belgium and Brazil. Although back then it wasn't, it was somewhere else because they shift around a lot. But yeah, it's infuriating. And the number of times that you tell somebody that, and I tell, like, every time I mention this in a crowd of more than one person, somebody is like, wait, what? What? Like, Molson isn't owned by a Canadian company? No. How is it even possible that people don't know this? It's
well, good on them. They've built their brand in a very specific and deliberate way, right? I am Canadian.
Yeah, it's right there on the label.
Yeah, good for them. They pulled one over.
Yeah.
On all of you.
Speaking of which, I think we're going to do antitrust and then merger, because that's the degrees, I think, of AB InBev news. They bought Mill Street. They're involved in an antitrust case. We actually have an
Wait a minute.
here.
Are you telling me that AB InBev is trying to control the distribution of beer in a market?
Can you believe it? They seem like such nice people.
Back up for a minute, Chris. Are there any markets in which they do have that advantage that allows them to be extra profitable?
Well, the funny thing is, if you heard just that little back and forth between Mandie and I, you might think, oh, sweet Lord, the province of Ontario has woken up and realized that we are giving two-ish and sort of a third a giant advantage over everybody other brewer in the fucking world. No, we're actually talking about the United States, where they have this really fantastically outdated system of beer distribution that almost makes Ontario look normal. Not quite. We're still a little bit more stupid. But the US has this system in most states called the 3-tier system, which means a brewery can't sell their product to a bar or the retailer. They have to sell it to a wholesaler or a distributor who then sells it to the final seller. It's such a weird, let's just government mandate a middleman. Just cause.
Well, Chris, that will help prevent underage drinking.
Oh, obviously. And drunk driving, and teen pregnancy probably. So there's that. Anyway, AB InBev has been going around buying up distributors and wholesalers, which seems completely contrary to the very spirit of the law, which I will be the first to admit is horrendously out of date and antiquated. But if you've got the law, maybe you should probably obey it. And they're not. They're buying up distributors. I think I got a great article from Salon. That's the one I'm going to include in the show notes, because it actually deals with the merger and the antitrust. But I think they said they'd bought up like 17 of the 500 distributors that sells their products. So right there, okay, that's an alarm bell. I don't understand how they're gaming the system and getting away with that. There's this whole thing that the wholesaler still has to operate independently. Which, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do something in the best interest of the
independently.
Yeah, of course, completely, right? Exactly.
Very similar.
It's insane. So they're letting them do this, and then on top of that, and this is the one that really made me laugh, because the way the article says it, like, it presents this as like some sort of a surprise, but it transpires that it might be that Anheuser-Busch InBev salespeople are bullying their distributors that they don't own into not carrying the products of other craft breweries. And the article, notes in the way that you note when an oak tree falls on your leg, that they've bought up some pretty big craft breweries to have on offer. Get rid of your Stone and your Dogfish Head and take my Elysian and my Goose Island and now my Mill Street. So that's the antitrust. Mandie, I like, this is something we talk about, and obviously you're doing a really good job tying it into Ontario as well. But take it here. What do you make of all this insanity? Is this like running scared, or like they're doubling down?
I think it's pretty terrifying if you look at it from the craft brewer's perspective. In the states where the distributor model, or where they have the 3-tier system, that is the only way to get your product to market. You have to sell through a distributor. And I believe that applies to both retail sales and licensee sales.
Yes,
so you're completely at the mercy of these distributors. If you don't have a good distributor partner, you have nothing. You don't have a brewery. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it, basically. If your distributor can't sell your product, you don't have a brewery. So to understand that the distributors are being purchased and controlled by AB InBev, terrifying. And for those that are not purchased and controlled by AB InBev, being bullied by them through their sales tactics in the market, that's something that really seriously needs to be investigated, and I'm glad to see that it is. It's unfortunate that smoke breweries may not have a great fighting chance at this. It seems like a bit of an uphill battle for them, but hopefully they'll come out on top with the investigation that's going on, because it's pretty terrifying from that perspective to understand that a large multinational corporation can simply control access to the market and entirely shut down these small businesses by preventing them to have access to consumers.
Yeah. It's just so infuriating. And especially, I mean, the best part, because I'm a cynical jerk and I like being right. One of the best parts to me of this is, you'll get beer geeks who bang on about like the amazingness of the American system and how much more progressive it is with beer in the States and stuff. And it's like, actually, no, they're regressing to more or less the same point we're at. And why? Well, because it's a giant company and they can do that. And there
are some really wacky laws in various states in the US. We should do some research and do a podcast entirely about some of the absolutely insane laws that exist in certain states for craft brewers. Some states are fantastic. Other states are far, far, far worse than Ontario.
Yeah.
I believe there are states in which you cannot brew beers that are above a certain alcohol percentage, like period.
Yeah.
That's
so
insanity.
there are a few. The prominent one is Utah because of the prevalence of Mormonism, where it's like, I think it's like 2.5% or something is the highest alcohol content you can have in a beer, which is stupid.
Like, into craft beer, thinking of becoming a brewer, going to open a brewery in your own home state of Utah, and you can't brew a beer above a certain alcohol percentage. Come on, really? Are you actually going to invest in creating that as a business and trying to succeed? Probably not. You're probably going to leave the state and do it somewhere else. But to see that there are actually businesses succeeding within these insane laws, it's sort of encouraging and reassuring as a fellow brewery owner. It's kind of cool to see that despite being up against some difficult circumstances, that craft beer seems to continue to prevail in just about every single state.
Yeah. Well, and in the States, like by orders of magnitude over Canada, the market share is shifting to craft in a way that even with the explosive growth we're getting in Ontario and these wonderful numbers the LCBO keep throwing at us about how much the segment is growing, the US is just, the growth of craft is pleasingly huge, which is nice. I need to take a quick break here. 1 second. I just hit myself in the face with a swing top. I did it on the wrong side. I can't believe that. That hurts so bad.
Are you just doing this for show, or
no? I really just smoked myself in the nose with a swing top bottle.
You okay?
Yeah, I'll be fine. It was stupid.
What
I just wanted it up near the mic. I'm opening not opening. It's the homebrew I've been drinking, but I recapped it. Apparently, it still had a lot of vigor. I'm drinking last year's Christmas beer that I made because it felt a little like Christmas tonight when the Jays won, and so I just wanted to pour some more and take a quick little diversion down home brewery lane. And I still haven't brewed this year. Which is really sad. But I am drinking homebrew from last year, which is tasty. It was officially because I really, not as much as like some of my friends, like Stephen Beaumont gets a real bee in his bonnet about these like invented beer styles. I'm not quite as manic about it as he is, but at the same time, especially in my homebrew, I try and not like try and create new ground. So what I brewed was a Belgian style strong dark ale. What it actually was is it's a very high proof saison. It's probably like 11%, and it was made with Y yeast, French saison yeast, and it was fermented really cold. Like I think I fermented it out at like 17 degrees. So it's like super clean, although it's kind of sour now. It's kind of funked up a bit. But it was like super clean and just a little spicy, but like really jammy. And I used like a bunch of candy sugar, like both dark and light. So it's all this like sugary multi nuance to it. It's really, really good. And now it's kind of taken on this like sort of almost not quite citric-y, but like very fruity acidity, which is pretty cool. I like it. So that's what I'm drinking. And I hit myself in the face with the swing top, and this bit just went to hell. Stupid bit. So the last piece of Anheuser-Busch InBev news that is the biggest in many ways is, of course, the SAB Miller Anheuser-Busch InBev merger, which they now apparently have an agreement in principle. So if you haven't been following along at home, kids, Anheuser-Busch InBev, biggest brewery in the world, and SAB Miller, do you know where they are on the list? Like fourth, maybe? Third or fourth?
I just had this data somewhere.
So they're up there. And here's the more important thing. They're up there. The gap between AB InBev and whoever's in second is really big. Like ABI is the biggest by a far cry. So, but SAB Miller is a big deal. And SAB, if you don't know, is South African Breweries. And so they have this huge market share in Africa, which is considered like a big emerging nation for beer. So there's a lot of good synergy for both of them. There's also a world of hurt because, of course, Miller and Bud are direct competition with each other in the United States. And so there's some conversation not with them, but like pundits and analysts and stuff saying that it's very likely there's going to have to be part of the agreement about I can't remember how they worded it. Basically, they think Miller won't be getting sold in the United States anymore, that they're going to have to pull them out and just have one brand. Anyway, I don't fully understand it because I don't run businesses and probably never will. But it's a really, really big deal. SAB made offers at ABI or the other way around. ABI must have been making offers at SAB. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's what it was. And they made, I think, 4 offers for, it was like the share price at 40 and then at 41.50 and then at like 52. Anyway, I think the final offer is at $44 a share, which is a deal to the tune of $105 billion with a B dollars US.
Really makes Mill Street look like chump change, doesn't it?
Yeah. Mill Street, which I don't know because it's a private deal, but if it's even 100 million, I'd be really surprised. $105 billion on the table.
It's literally, Mill Street would literally be a rounding error compared to this. Like,
oh yeah, totally. Yeah, there are thousands.
It's so insignificant. Like, I know it's a big deal in our world, but it's so insignificant compared to this is what's going on in the world.
They are saying, I don't know who they are, but I've heard it said, I've read it on the internet, and God knows it must be true, but I believe it. This will obviously be the biggest merger in brewing ever, but they're saying it's going to be one of the biggest mergers of companies, period. Breaking that $100 billion mark apparently is something that doesn't happen too often. So this is noteworthy because this is like tech sector level mergers and acquisitions, not beer making mergers and acquisitions. It's a very interesting thing. Some of the potential fallout, they would control something like 1/3 of all the beer in the world.
31%.
Yeah, which is like, that just sounds made up, but it would be true.
It's for reals. And the most important piece is that they're going to control a much, much, much larger share in the markets where beer is growing. So I know we're all like high and mighty about craft beer and its growth in North America, but beer overall in North America and in Canada is not a growing industry.
No.
Craft beer, yes, it's a growing segment within the industry, but beer is not growing in North America.
Nope.
It is growing in other markets, and that's why they would be making such a move.
Let me do 2 things. It's going to be fun and it's going to be functional. Okay, it's like a dog sled, fun and functional. I don't know what I'm talking about right now. Mandie, Let me ask you this, okay? We're just talking about Anheuser-Busch InBev merger with SAB Miller could be worth $105 billion US. We don't know how much Mill Street was purchased for, but let's say it was purchased for $100 million because that's a nice number to work with. Part of the deal they announced was, and this was really to, smooth some ruffled feathers, was that ABI was investing $10 million in brewery operation. Now, we don't know what that means because obviously $10 million is a lot of money, and that's where we're going with this little break here. It's a little corner. It's the Ask Mandie corner. But it could be another brewery because they have a big production brewery in Scarborough. It could be...
They have another production brewery in Scarborough. That is their brewery. That's where they brew all their beer.
Okay.
It's not another brewery. They don't brew beer in the distillery district that gets sold to the market, aside from at the brew pub.
That's right.
So
they have
that
2
is
brew pubs because they have one in Ottawa too.
Their brewery is a factory in Scarborough.
In Scarborough,
That's how you should start that sentence. Sorry.
Okay. So, hey, no, I'm with you. That's the kind of nitpicking I do to you all the time. This is the Ask Mandie corner, talking about the Mill Street buyout, $10 million. Don't know if it's going to be invested in the main brewery. Is that fair? In Scarborough? If it's going to build another large production brewery, if it's going to be spread out between the 2 brew pubs and the major brewery in Scarborough. We don't know. This has not been discussed. They're just saying $10 million, we're going to invest in the brewery. Mandie, tell me this. I am a mega rich Brazilian Belgian guy, and I'm going to give you $10 million.
Give it to me?
Yeah, no, because I'm buying you out, but you're going to have $10 million. Let's not get into the
That is
nitty-gritty.
very different.
Let's not get into the
Okay,
nitty-gritty, Mandie.
Go on.
Ownership be damned. You now have $10 million. What are you going to do with it at Left Field Brewery?
Wait, do I have $10 million and I work for myself, or do I have $10 million and I work for you?
It really
Because I think if I work for you, you would be telling me what to do with the $10 million.
Okay, you have $10 million and you work for me, and I say to you, you go off with your guys, your little staff, and you come back and you tell me what we're going to do with the 10 million. It's yours. Blank check. It's not blank. It says 10 million on it. That was amazing. Check for $10 million and you can do whatever you want with it. There's no line on the budget. Okay? You write the line or lines.
So far, I'm going to ask my boss for clearer direction.
No, the first thing is you ask for a raise, but anyway.
Direction.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you asking what I would do with an influx of $10 million?
Yeah, what are you going to do with 10? Because stop and think about this for a minute, dear listener. I'm not talking to Mandie here now. $10 million, guys. That is a huge sum of money.
Just to be clear, my business is not for sale.
Okay. It isn't, because I've already bought it and I'm not selling it. And you have $10 million. What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to be so miserable working for you. I really would prefer to work for myself.
I am going to be such a laissez-faire boss. I'm going to spend so much of my time in the Cayman Islands. Like, you're never going to see me.
All right. This won't be so bad. Well, it may not come as a surprise, but we have some debt, so it would be important to pay that back.
Okay.
Beer is a volume business, and it is difficult to turn a profit on little volume. And that is why businesses like Mill Street grew the way they did to become attractive to be purchased. Like, it's a volume business. Any brewery that wants to make itself attractive to investors needs to have some volume capacity. So you would buy tanks. Tanks are the piece of equipment that you could pay back.
So you can blow up the other breweries?
No, that's not the goal.
Not that kind of tank. Wrong kind of tank. Sorry.
No, not that kind of tank. I mean fermenters. So
okay.
When we're ready to grow volume, we would buy fermenters. That's what you need to do. But we have some other, you may find this boring, but we have some other challenges at the brewery that would need to be addressed before we move to additional fermenters. Something that's really challenging for us right now is that we've already started to outgrow our fridge. And so we insist, of course, on cold storing our beer. All craft beer should be stored cold. If you're not storing your craft beer cold and it's unpasteurized, you have a big problem. So I would suggest that you make sure that when you bring your craft beer home from the LCBO, or maybe you're buying it at the beer store, maybe you're buying it direct from a brewery, but you should always, always, always store it cold. Don't leave it in the car. Don't leave it in the backyard in the sun. Put it in the fridge. So we've started to run out of space in our fridge. And so cold storage on site, off site, I don't know where it would be, but we would need to build additional cold storage for our beer because we're already very, very tight. So that was a mistake and something we need to address immediately. Right now,
so you're going to build a $10 million fridge.
We need a fridge. It doesn't need to be a $10 million fridge.
Could you imagine what kind of fridge you could get for $10 million?
You could get a fridge for quite a lot less than $10 million. There are some pretty basic necessities that we're going without right now. So small things like our own forklift, so we don't have to borrow one from the neighbors. That would be nice. We don't actually have any office furniture, so
that is not true. You have a banging air hockey table.
We do have an air hockey table, which was free, might I add. Every piece of furniture in the office was free, with the exception of a couple of $9 folding chairs. So it would be helpful to have some office furniture and some additional computers, because right now we share desks and we share computers. And on certain days, it does get to the point where it's actually unproductive because we're waiting around for each other's desks or computers to do our own work. So there are some very basic necessities that we're kind of going without. That $10 million, we could just kind of grab those things in a jiffy and be a lot more efficient with our time.
And you still got well over $9 million to spend.
Right? I know. It's kind of crazy. I had probably invested some outdoor signage and some lighting and some pretty basic things that most businesses have. And then, man, what would I do with the rest of my $10 million aside from paying off debt and buying some more tanks? I don't really know what I would do.
You've still got millions of dollars.
I know. You see,
can I suggest some things?
Want to run the type of we don't really want to run the type of business where managing hundreds of employees. And when you build a $10 million brewery and you have that sort of capacity, you're running a pretty gigantic business. And that means I can't pour beers in the tap room most of the time. I'm not going to be unloading any skids with the forklift off the truck at the end of the day. I'm probably not engaging with the customers too often. Probably not working at any of the beer fests. And then I think a lot of the fun really gets sucked out of it. So I don't know that I want to work for you, Chris, and I don't know that I want your $10 million. Well,
it's too late. I've already bought you. You have to spend it. No, this is a bit of a silly exercise, but it fully has worked, because I'm not going to say you don't need 10 million. If somebody handed you 10 million, no strings attached, I'm pretty sure you could probably find some worthy things to do with it.
I think we're actually probably going to shut down the brewery this year, and all of the wonderful people that we've chosen to spend every day with.
Yeah.
Like literally we spend more time with the people we work with than our own family and friends. We're going to take all these awesome people that we love to spend time with, and we're going to just travel the world. $10 million.
Yeah.
You guys make your own beer. See ya.
Yeah, I'm out of here. Baseball themed brewery. It's going to be pretty quiet now, neighbors. No, but and that worked really well. I like that how well that bit went, because that's the point for a lot of the smaller businesses in the face of these. I just like saying $100 billion takeovers. That, yeah, a lot of small companies really, you know, the values are different. We have different values, and it's funny. I run into this personally. This is a little soapbox, but no, I think I will tell you. I'll tell you the story, Mandie, and dear listener. Might get cut because we're at an hour 14 right now. Although we did talk in the middle there for a long time. We moved, and I think I recorded the last podcast, not the live one here, but so we've moved recently, and that's great, and we love where we are. But without getting too personal into details, when we submitted our application to rent the house, we were told by the agency that manages the property, because it's not dealing with the homeowner, that to comfortably rent this house, they would like to see us earning $100,000 a year. I was like, what? And I wanted to be like, do you think I'd be renting a house if I was earning $100,000 a year? Like, what the hell is the matter with you? What kind of math are you doing where I'm earning $100,000 a year and I'm still renting a house? That's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. But we literally had to kind of make this appeal and be like, we have different values. Like, maybe you're right if we needed to drive like a new nice car, and if both Eric and I needed to seasonally retool our wardrobe, and if we had to go somewhere warm on a plane and drink rum-based beverages twice a year, like all these things that I guess people hold so, you know, so near and dear, that they're so important in their lives. And I'm like, man, I don't relate to any of that stuff. I buy most of my clothes at Value Village, like, and not to be like hipster, just because it's like, I'm cheap. I don't want to spend full money on clothes. And it's just, there's this real, I don't know if it's like, as I'm getting older, I'm just becoming more aware that like, there's a real value difference in some people. And I think that maybe on some subconscious level, that's part of what I don't think brought me to craft brewing, but certainly endeared me once I was already kind of involved in the scene, was this appreciation. I mean, there are some giant guys. Mill Street's one of them, and they did what they wanted, and they did it well. Amsterdam's a huge company too. Jeff is a fantastically shrewd businessman. And there are others. Certainly we're at Beau's Oktoberfest, and Beau's goes with a very different mindset, but they're becoming quite a large brewery, and that's fine. But there are so many people who are just very comfortable being like, no, like I don't have to be huge, and I don't have to be, you know, ridiculously well known or whatever. I really like that. That's why I like you guys. It's
totally how we found ourselves in craft beer, was exactly for those reasons. I'll never forget a conversation I had with one of my closest friends when we made the decision to sort of take the leap and build the actual brewery. And I was talking about some of the details of the financials with her. She's one of my best friends. And she said, aren't you scared? And aren't you worried that like, you'll lose your house and you'll lose everything? Like if it doesn't work out, I know you guys are great and you're smart and you'll make it work and that's not going to happen. But what if it does? Like it takes guts to do that. And it may not work out. What would you do? I was like, well, it's just a house and it's just stuff. And I have family and friends and people I can rely on. Like, we've camped in the delivery van a whole bunch of times. So at the end of the day, we could always just like sleep in the van for a little while if we couldn't figure things out.
Yeah.
And she was shocked that I said that. Like, it's just a house and it's just things. And that's truly how we feel. Like we have confidence that things would work, that to a degree we knew what we were doing, and it was fairly low risk, even though it was perceived by many, including the banks, as being a high risk thing. But I don't know. It's just, I didn't really care about any of those things. I don't need to have nice things and I don't need to make a lot of money. Life is short. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't know. I don't want to sound like a sappy parent and stuff. Having kids kind of changed me a lot. You do have to become a little bit more, responsible. We camped one summer for like 6 weeks in a tent in my mom's backyard, just because we were between places. Can't really do that with kids. It's harder to do with kids anyway. We'd probably have to build a yurt or something. I'd borrow Patty's maybe. But so that changes things a little bit. But then you start thinking about the values that you instill in the kids. And, like, I don't want my kids to grow up thinking that like their self-worth is measured in their bank account, especially because then they'll totally lose faith in me. But anyway, let's jump ahead here. Let's move on. But that was really good. I like that. It's good. The only other thing I have on the show notes is Cask Days, because of course you may or may not know, Mandie, but Cask Days is coming up.
Oh, wow. Is it really, Chris? I hadn't realized. Just kidding. We've been working on our casks for a while now. We had to submit what our final cask submissions were going to be a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago. So it's all sort of ready to go. And we've been doing a lot of cask experiments at the brewery.
Did you just say cask experiment?
Yeah, it's a dorky thing that we came up with, but we do.
That's a weird. Was it portmanteau? How do you say that word?
I don't know.
Portmanteau? Is that how you say it?
I don't even know what you're saying.
When you combine two words into one.
Oh, I didn't know that was a. What is the word for that? I don't know.
I'm looking it up right now. I think it is portman. Oh, I'm not looking. This is. Keep going.
Cask experiments at the brewery.
Cask experiments.
We've had a bunch that didn't really work out and we weren't able to serve them. The end result was used for cooking, or it ended up exploded all over the brewery floor. But that's just the things with the cask experiments. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. When they do work out well, we tap them and pour them on Saturdays and Sundays at the brewery. We've had some really fun ones and some really delicious ones. Others just really didn't work out. And so we've been sort of preparing our casks for Cask Days and getting some great ideas lined up. And we're getting ready to fill the actual casks that we're sending off to Cask Days, which is not this coming weekend, but I believe it is the fall away weekend.
Correct.
So
it
it's
is the
October.
23rd, 24th, 25th.
That's right. Yes.
Look at me knowing the dates, eh?
Good for you. I had to pull up a calendar, but you were faster than me.
Because they're in my mind. Quick aside, portmanteau, that is portmanteau, large truck or suitcase typically made of stiff leather and opening into two equal parts. And that's the important part, because it also means consisting of or combining two or more separate aspects or qualities. Another good definition is a portmanteau word fuses both the sounds and the meanings of its component, like cask experiment.
Gotcha.
Okay. If you've been to Cask Days, you could just tune out now because you already know this, but it is fantastic. It is busy. It's crowded. There's lineups. Like, that's all normal, but it is such an amazing festival for just the sheer volume of things that you're never going to get to try again. And you get to try them all in one spot. There are some really cool tickets. I don't know if they're still available, but they do, like, I know Stephen Beaumont in the past has done like a walking tour, guided tasting. Ralph does one. That would be Ralph Morena, who is the owner of Volo and the founder of Cask Days. So there are some great value adds. There's like the Brewers Breakfast, which you're probably going to because you're one of the brewers. So are you at the Brewers Breakfast, Mandie?
I will be attending the Brewers Breakfast, but I am not a brewer. But that is the
okay. So
being a brewery owner.
Brewery, which, yeah. Anyway, that is a really good time, and especially if you are interested in the art of brewing, or if maybe you're a young up and comer and you want an opportunity to grab a brewer's ear, that's a pretty good way of doing it. Cast Days, tickets are still on sale. Some of the sessions are sold out, but if not, get those. Only Cafe Festival of Craft Beer this weekend. I think this is coming out on Friday, so tonight, if it came out on Friday, and tomorrow, let's say Friday the, what are we at? Friday the 16th?
Yes.
And Saturday the 17th. Yes. We've gone on at length about our love for those festivals. Good fun, always good times, and love the Only, so get out to them too.
For the first time in a long time, we actually have a variety of beer, so we will have it there. Yeah.
What? Okay, can I guess? Will you be able
well,
to
you've been to the brewery recently, so you know that our variety is still pretty slim.
Anybody who follows Instagram could probably guess. It's probably Bricks and Mortar, Grandstand, and like EFUS.
Yeah, and Barris, who knows? We have all this packaged stuff now. We can just bring a variety and go crazy.
Okay, thanks, Mandie.
Oh, you didn't ask me about my Cast Days casks, Chris.
I assumed it was hush hush. I didn't think I could ask you that. I thought that was asking your age or your... Yeah.
No, I won't say exactly what they are, but we have a cheeky one coming, so look out for it.
Inspired by?
It's inspired by an awful Untapped check-in that we hated, so we made a beer for the person who hated our beer, who asked for something more delicious that was made by AB and Bev. So watch out for our cask.
Oh, I actually think I already know where this is going. I think I do. It's a bit like Beau's Haters Gonna Hate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Yep. So look up Left Field, Cast Days, and look for Mandie because she'll be there. Brewer's Breakfast, not a brewer. She's an imposter, but she'll be there. And be a good time. Talk to you in about 2 weeks.
Sounds great.
It does sound great.
Happy postseason baseball watching.
Oh my gosh, guys.
Enjoy it. Just enjoy it.
Monday the 19th, vote and watch baseball. That's the final thought right there.
And then Chris, watch some more baseball, and then watch some more baseball after that. It's just so exciting that there's going to be so many more games. It's awesome.
Well, hopefully there's only going to be 8 more. Is that right? Best of 5, best of 7?
Yes. And I know we're just wrapping, but I've just described to somebody how torn I am on what I want the actual results to be.
Okay.
Because as a Jays fan and a baseball fan, I just want sweep done.
You're right.
As a business owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want more games.
Yeah. You want it to go you're experiencing Leaf syndrome. It doesn't matter if we win. We just need to make it. We want that juicy postseason gate. So
I want it to be somewhere in between just for fun.
Well, I can understand that. Adds drama too.
Yeah. It's more fun that way, right?
Okay. Hour and 30. Let's throw this out there. Mandie, baseball expert. Don't say you're not.
Not an expert, but I do have a love of the game.
Who will be the star of game 1 against the... I wanted to hold something up in front of my mouth, like The Simpsons. This doesn't have video. It doesn't matter. The team we're going to play on Monday. Who's going to be the hero?
Let's see who the team we're going to play on Monday is. Hold on. The game must almost be over.
Is it? Late breaking news on the Toronto Beer podcast.
We'll be playing the Kansas City Royals.
Yep, good.
So
because that means both teams from Texas are out. Fuck you, Texas.
So aggressive, Chris.
Hey, no, that's how Texans speak to each other. I think that's just how they do it.
Anyway, good for Kansas City. They deserve it. They waltzed right into the postseason, and they certainly earned a place in the ALCS.
So on Monday, facing the Royals of Kansas City, incidentally, the inspiration for the song Royals by Lorde. Yeah, she saw a Royals hat and sort of obsessed about the word Royals for a while. Wrote the
song. Are you making that up?
No, dead serious.
That's very weird.
Well, have you heard an interview with Lorde? The first thing you need to know is she's from New Zealand. So right there, that's already kind of messed up. And then it just gets weirder from there. Artistic parents. She's very bohemian. I love her music, though. God. Mandie, who is going to be the star of the game on Monday between the Kansas City Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays? They are the Blue Jays, right? They went through a thing where they were just the Jays.
Totally Blue Jays.
Okay.
Who's going to be the star of the game?
Who is going to be the star of the game?
Donaldson's such an easy pick, but quite honestly, so far in the postseason, Kevin Pillar has been my all-star, so I'm going to put him as all-star.
That catch tonight? Oh.
That catch every night. He makes that catch every night. That is why he's so incredible. And he hustles the entire game. He hasn't had the best at-bats, but he's come through in key moments. He's awesome.
Can I just say really quickly on baseball, This might not make the final cut. I found myself tonight thinking, I went, man, why are we still playing Goins? This guy's at-bats are just nothing.
And then he made that play in the 8th or the 9th, and you said, oh, that's why.
He had 2 really clutch catches. I was like, okay, that's fine. He can bunt all he wants.
As he made the first of those 2 plays, I said, he can keep batting. It's okay. This is why we have him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were 2 very single base hit balls. But nope, not on his watch.
Nope.
Yeah.
Kevin Pillar, watch out. He is an actual superhero, a real living superhero. Okay,
here's mine, because you didn't ask, but you're going to get it. I got a real feeling that Rivera's really going to light it up. He's a great leadoff man in the vein of like the Devon White, can get himself on base. He's fast. He can steal. Like, he's everything you want in a leadoff man. I predict like later game when he's 3rd, 4th at bat that he's going to really deliver. That's my guess.
Okay, we'll see.
Also, his name's Ben, my son's name. So I like him already. Thanks for listening, Toronto. We'll talk to you in about 2 weeks.